Welcome to the Krusty Fox, and today we're suffering through Season 1, Episode 7 of Sex and the City. But before we get to that, last time I asked you how long you'd let things play out if you knew the person you were with was keeping you a secret. Enter commenter Run-Free Black Wolf, who proposed a three-way approach merging Libby, Charlotte and Samantha, or as Carrie would call it, at least 20 columns and a book deal. Don't forget to wait until the bitter end of this video to get this week's question and subscribe to see whether your answer makes the cut next week. So today's installment is called The Monogamists, but don't let that worry you. It's far more to do with how you can weaponize monogamy and infidelity to get what you want from people. Fun! We begin with Carrie monologuing about how her fledgling relationship with Mr. Big has rendered everyone in the city except for them irrelevant. It's kind of her to invite Big into what we know by now to be a delusion she's had about herself for quite some time. During an apparently long overdue catch-up call with Miranda, Carrie crows about her new love but ominously notes that she doesn't want to compare it to past flings because they all ended. If she only knew at this point just how many ends she and Big were going to experience together, she'd probably invent the Peloton bike 2 decades early. And just like that, Carrie zeroes in on a problem to obsess over. She decides that she's forsaken her girlfriends for her boyfriend and sets out to make amends. At dinner, they fill her in on their latest happenings. Miranda handled a big merger at work apparently, but the writers certainly don't seem to care about it, and so neither do I. Samantha, it seems, has developed an obsession with finding a new apartment. And Charlotte is described as practically engaged to new beau Michael after a chance meeting in the park. I think this might be it, she slurs over a glass of Chardonnay, managing the impressive feat of out-Pollyannaing herself. However, Charlotte does admit that there's trouble in paradise, namely Michael's so far futile insistence on sailing his skin boat to Teeth Town. The act itself is apparently her only problem, rather than the close proximity of Michael's golden retriever, Butterscotch, to the whole thing. How close does a dog have to be to an in-progress beach before it goes from a witness to a participant? Instead, Charlotte confesses that not only does she not enjoy the act of mouth-to-south resuscitation, but she's never actually done it. Setting aside Samantha's predictable horror, even Miranda and Carrie come off surprisingly supportive of the occasional hummer, but nevertheless support Charlotte's sloppy toppy strike. As they leave, Samantha spots Mr. Big sitting in the corner with a mystery lady. Loved up as she is, Carrie bypasses her usual instant paranoia in one of the rare scenarios in which it might have actually proved useful and goes over to say hello. She pulls the same trick she did in the last episode, Szechuan Place, and motions awkwardly with her eyes until she's introduced to Big's dinner companion. An unbothered Big informs Carrie that he's on a date, one of the apparently many he's continuing to enjoy while also with her. She keeps it together until the end of their conversation, but loudly vents her disbelief at Big's infidelity before she's even cleared the coat check. It's probably worth pointing out that nobody's truly in the right here. Big is obviously a player and does things that he knows aren't okay, but rationalizes that they are because Carrie didn't explicitly forbid them. Carrie, on the other hand, deals with the problem as unhealthily as ever. She whips it up into both a column and a pair of sweeping generalizations. That men may be genetically incapable of monogamy, and in 90s New York, fidelity might be an expectation too far. Presumably Carrie's editor is a far kinder soul than I, because the idea that Big is in any way representative of all men is hilarious to the point of slander. Next, we join Samantha for a spot of real estate infidelity. After promising her first broker, Pamela, that she wouldn't, she property hops with English agent Rick. During the course of their handsy walkthrough, they give a whole new meaning to blowing out the back wall. For some reason, Carrie's torment over Big's multiple date disorder leads her to drinks with Stanford, who attends their cocktail summit dressed like a peach Melba somebody left out in the sun. He suggests that monogamy is over, and modern couples are keeping their options open. Presumably in Stanford's case, the options his love interests are keeping open are doors and windows so that they have ample choice of what to dive out of when he isn't looking. Stanford's acquaintance Jared then wanders over. Published author Jared is played by Justin Theroux, and when you've got that pictured in your mind, you'll understand why I say it's deeply unlikely that a man so attractive could have known Stanford long enough to become familiar without a restraining order having been filed. Carrie is flattered by Jared's flirting, an achievement in and of itself when he uses the words groovy and chow one after the other, and agrees to attend an upcoming party being thrown in his honour. We're supposed to think that Carrie is playing Big at his own game, but we know better. She's always got another angle. Later, Big briefly calls to confirm their date the following evening and makes the admirably ballsy move of pretending their restaurant encounter never actually happened. Despite her fury, Carrie betrays herself and all too eagerly accepts. Naturally, she immediately grabs dinner with Miranda to autopsy the 30-second conversation, asking whether it contains some kind of coded message of apology. Miranda doesn't have the time to get into it because the worst happens. Skipper passes by, and he's not alone. He stops to chat and introduces them to his girlfriend, Allison. It turns out Miranda dumped Skipper off screen sometime earlier, having spent all of their time together up to that point treating him like homework, by which I mean something she has to do but doesn't want to do. But that all flies out the window when she sees him with another woman, particularly when Vogue employee Allison makes it clear that she's committed high treason by being beautiful, confident, and successful. Given all of that, why she's with Skipper is anybody's guess. And I was wrong. That wasn't the worst that could happen. Because the writing team hates all of us, we're then forced to bear witness to a Skipper sex scene. It's horrific for all the reasons you'd expect, but the truly upsetting part is that Skipper's kissing technique closely resembles a Great Dane trying to lick wet kibble out from underneath a kitchen unit. Luckily, Miranda fires a completely inappropriate but still very much appreciated torpedo at the SS Skipper and Allison when she jealously calls to ask him out to dinner. Because Skipper's a lunatic, he answers the phone, accepts the invite, and breaks up with his girlfriend, all while the ship is still docked. If you know what I mean. Meanwhile, Carrie and Big attend a ridiculously overcrowded house party. In short order, Big is kissed by an ex-girlfriend, and the party's host mistakes Carrie for one of Big's other women. After claiming that she doesn't want anything from him anymore, an extremely transparent lie, Carrie leaves Big and heads for Jared's party instead. Elsewhere, Miranda lies next to Skipper in bed, probably wondering how he's going to skipper the situation. And she doesn't have long to wait. Miranda, you see, has mistakenly assumed that she could continue to use Skipper for an occasional no-pants dance and leave poor Allison to deal with him the rest of the time. In a rare and possibly one-off display of common sense, Skipper finally realises that she'll never want him long-term. Miranda makes the kind of weak attempt to make him stay, which baristas do when a customer walks in 10 seconds before closing time, but it's too late and Skipper walks out. At the same time, Charlotte is back at Michael's apartment, trying to avoid playing a tune on the pink oboe. She finally admits to him that she hates it and asks whether he really wants her to do something she doesn't want to, as Butterscotch pants 3 feet to her left. Michael's halo slips, and he implies that their recently agreed to exclusivity has a Lewinsky clause. Realising that he isn't interested in anything else she has to offer unless she agrees to perform a lip lock on his love muscle, Charlotte calls it a day. Side note, in case you think I'm too harsh on the writers of this show, just know that the dog was there for a reason. A scene was shot, but mercifully cut, where Charlotte discovers Michael slathering his between me down there in peanut butter so that Butterscotch could do what she wouldn't. There is no such thing as too harsh. While all this is going on, Samantha is still touring the city at midnight with Randy real estate representative Rick. He takes her to an apartment that just that second went on the market, then starts to take her in the same apartment. Just then, his rival Pamela walks in with a similarly house-hunting couple who are all treated to a top-front view of Samantha that you'd normally at least have to flirt with her a bit to get. At Jared's ego-stroking magazine party, Carrie is gamely entertaining his self-important waffle about his writing career. Over the top though he may be, he is at least direct and asks whether she'll go home with him. Before answering, Carrie steps away to call Big, and the game she's playing suddenly becomes clear. Carrie isn't interested in Jared. She only went to the party because she knew he wanted her and needed a vehicle to make Big jealous. She gets Big on the phone and tells him to meet her out front of the venue. When he shows up, she finally admits that what she wants from him is exclusivity. Of course, she does it in her usual flowery Carrie Bradshaw way, but at least she's being relatively clear about her feelings for a change. Notably, Big doesn't actually give her an answer. He responds to her metaphorical request to stand still with her in their relationship by literally doing just that, ending the episode staring up at the sky. Of course, if this was real life and an actual person with Big's personality was in that situation, he'd have been 3 blocks away by the time she finished spinning her latest romantic analogy. But we're expected to suspend our disbelief in service of these two being star-crossed lovers, something that would only actually be true if they were strapped to separate rockets and flown into each other in low orbit. So, that's it for another episode. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to leave a like to let me know, subscribe for more every week, and if you can, share these videos to spread the word. It's all very much appreciated, as are you all. And if you're still with me, here's this week's question. Where do you stand on Miranda's treatment of Skipper? Fine or problematic? Answers in the comments below, and the best will make an appearance in next week's video. Either way, thanks for watching, and as ever, if you can't be good, be crusty.